The great hall of the kingdom shined with golden light. The walls were high, the banners bright, and the throne stood tall at the end of the long stone floor. On that throne sat Queen Helena, young yet full of pride, her crown heavy with jewels. She looked down at the men who stood before her, warriors who had come to prove their strength. She believed no man could stand against her chosen champions. Her words always carried a sharp tone, and her people feared both her power and her temper. Among the warriors stood Ethan Carter. He was not dressed in shining armor like the others. His clothes were plain, his blade old but well cared for. His eyes were calm, and his steps steady. He did not bow too low, nor did he shout of his strength. He simply stood with a quiet air that made the queen frown. She saw him as common, too simple to be of worth, and she thought it would be easy to break him. The court whispered as the queen pointed her scepter toward Ethan. Her voice rang clear across the hall. She told him that if he wished to stand among her warriors, he would need to prove himself in her arena. Many laughed, certain he would fall quickly, for her guards were trained by the best masters of the realm. Helena leaned back against her throne, certain of the result, her lips curved in a cold smile. Ethan did not argue. He only nodded and followed the guards as they led him to the wide arena outside the hall. The sun burned bright over the stone walls. The people filled the seats, shouting and cheering. The queen sat high above, watching as the gates opened. Her chosen fighters stepped forward with blades and spears, their armor polished, their faces set with pride. They were strong and confident, ready to strike. The first man rushed toward Ethan with a spear, swift and fierce. Ethan moved to the side, letting the strike pass. He grabbed the shaft, pulled, and the guards stumbled forward. With one quick motion, Ethan struck him down. The crowd gasped. The queen's eyes narrowed. She told herself it was only luck. Another fighter came, swinging his sword hard. Ethan blocked with his worn blade, sparks flying. He did not push with wild force, but guided each strike aside, turning the man's strength against him. At the right moment, he struck the man's hand, sending the sword flying. The guard fell to his knees. The people cheered louder now, though many still held their breath. The queen gripped the arms of her throne, her cold smile fading. More guards came at once, trying to overwhelm him. Ethan's feet moved quick, his eyes sharp. He ducked under a blade, rolled across the ground, and rose behind his foe. His sword flashed, striking with skill, never wasting strength. One by one, the guards fell, beaten but alive. He never struck to kill, only to win. This made the crowd cheer even louder, for he fought with both power and honor. The queen felt a strange weight in her chest. She had thought him weak, yet he stood strong, calm as stone, his movements smooth like water. She told herself that her guards had not fought well enough, that they had been careless. She could not allow her pride to fall in front of her people. At last, Ethan stood alone in the center of the arena. His blade was lifted in respect, not in boast. He looked up at the queen's throne and bowed his head. He had proven himself without a single word. People shouted his name, their voices shaking the air. They had seen strength not in armor, not in riches, but in the calm heart of a simple man. The queen forced a smile back onto her lips. She clapped her hands slowly, her rings shining in the sun. She told the crowd that the man had shown some skill, yet her voice carried less pride than before. Deep inside, she felt the first sting of doubt. For the first time, she wondered if her strength, her throne, and her pride would be enough to face a man like Ethan Carter. The sun was setting when the queen returned to her chambers. The cheers of the crowd still rang in her ears, but they no longer sounded like music. They sounded like doubt. Her people had cheered for Ethan Carter, not for her guards, not for her throne. She looked into the polished glass on her wall and saw her own face, pale and stern. She told herself she could not allow one man to shake her rule. She would prove that he was no more than a lucky fighter. She would show everyone that her power was greater. In the lower halls, Ethan was given a place to rest. He sat on a simple bench, his blade across his knees. His breath was steady, his hands calm. Other men looked at him with both respect and wonder. Some asked him where he had trained, but Ethan only said that life had taught him. He spoke with few words, and his quiet tone made others listen closely. Even those who had laughed at him earlier now stayed silent in his presence. That night, the queen called her council. Old men and women gathered in the golden room, their robes brushing the stone floor. She asked them what they thought of Ethan Carter. Some praised his skill, saying he fought like no other they had seen. Others warned that his fame could grow, and the people might place their hearts in him instead of their queen. Helena's pride burned at their words. She slammed her hand on the table and declared that no man could rise above her throne. She would face Ethan herself and crush him before all. They said it was not wise for a queen to risk her life in the arena. But Helena's pride was stronger than reason. She rose to her full height, her crown catching the firelight, and swore that she would show all men that no warrior, no matter how strong, could defeat her. The next day the word spread fast across the kingdom. Bells rang and criers shouted in the streets. The queen herself would fight Ethan Carter in the grand arena. The people rushed to the stone seats, eager to see what would happen. Some prayed for the queen, others whispered that Ethan would win. The air was thick with both fear and hope. Ethan stood once more in the center of the arena. His blade was the same old steel, his stance the same calm one as before. He looked up and saw the queen walking through the gates. She wore armor of bright silver, her sword longer than his, her crown shining even in battle.
Ow.
The people bowed their heads as she passed, but Ethan did not move, only watched her with steady eyes. The queen raised her sword high and pointed it at Ethan. Her voice echoed across the stone walls. She told the crowd that today they would see who held true strength, their queen or a common man. The people roared, their cheers rolling like thunder. The queen felt their voices lift her pride again. She thought of how she would strike him down, and how all doubt would end in one swift blow. The horns sounded, and the fight began. The queen rushed forward, her blade flashing. She swung with strength that shook the ground. Ethan stepped aside, his blade rising to meet hers. Steel clashed, and sparks flew. The crowd shouted as the sound echoed again and again. Helena struck with fury, her arms moving fast, her sword heavy and sharp. But Ethan moved with calm steps, each block and counter steady, his eyes never leaving hers. The queen grew angry as her strikes failed to land. She swung harder, faster, but Ethan's blade was always there, guiding her strength away. She tried to crush him with power, but he did not fight with power alone. He fought with patience, waiting for her pride to open a door. Minutes passed and sweat ran down the queen's face. Her arms began to ache, yet Ethan still stood tall, his breath calm, his blade ready. The people began to cheer for him again, their voices calling his name. The queen heard it, and it stung her heart. She raised her sword for another strike, her pride burning hotter than the sun. But Ethan saw the moment, the flaw in her anger, and he prepared for the turn that would change all. The clash of steel echoed across the grand arena as the queen struck again. Her sword was heavy, her strikes fierce, yet each time Ethan Carter turned the blade aside. The crowd watched in silence now, their voices hushed, their eyes locked on the two figures in the ring of stone. Dust rose under their feet, and the sound of metal rang sharp in the air. Queen Helena pushed forward with anger. Her crown shifted on her head, her armor glinting in the sun. She believed her power was unmatched, yet with every strike she missed, her pride shook. Ethan did not rush her. He moved with steady steps, guiding her attacks away, never wasting his strength. His eyes were calm, his breath even, as if the fight was no more than a simple task. The queen grew more reckless. She spun, her sword cutting the air with force meant to end the duel. Ethan blocked, his blade sliding against hers, and stepped aside. The crowd gasped as Helena stumbled for a brief moment, her balance broken. Ethan could have ended the fight there, but he did not strike. He waited, watching as she recovered, his blade steady in his hand. Helena's heart pounded. She could feel her strength slipping away. The armor that had once felt light now weighed down her shoulders. Her arms trembled from the heavy swings, yet her pride would not let her stop. She shouted at Ethan, demanding that he fight with true force, not this calm patience that made her feel weak. Ethan gave no answer. His silence was stronger than any word, and it made her rage burn hotter. The people began to stir. Some called out for the queen, urging her to win. But many more began to cheer for Ethan, their voices rising above hers. The sound cut deep into Helena's pride. For years, she had been the symbol of strength, the ruler who no man could match. Yet here, before all, A single warrior was showing her limits. She could not accept it. She would not accept it. She lunged forward, her blade high, and brought it down with all the power left in her body. Ethan raised his sword, meeting the strike. The clash rang like thunder. The queen pressed with all her weight, her face close to his, her teeth clenched. Ethan held firm, his stance unbroken, his arms steady. Slowly, with calm strength, he pushed her blade away. Her feet slid across the stone, her power failing against his balance. The queen stumbled again, her sword striking the ground. Ethan moved in a swift motion. He struck her weapon aside, sending it spinning across the arena floor. Gasps filled the air. Helena looked up to see Ethan's blade at her throat. His eyes held no cruelty, only quiet resolve. He had won. The crowd roared, their voices shaking the walls. Ethan stepped back, lowering his sword. He gave her the chance to rise, to stand with her honor still intact. Helena's chest heaved with breath, her pride torn in pieces. She felt the weight of all eyes on her, and for the first time she knew the taste of defeat. She bent down, picked up her sword, and held it at her side. She wanted to speak, but her voice failed her. The cheers for Ethan filled her ears, louder than any command she had ever given. She stood in silence, the crown on her head feeling heavier than ever. Ethan turned, walking toward the edge of the arena. His steps were steady, his head held high, yet never embossed. He had no need for pride, no need for loud words. His victory was clear, and the people knew it. Helena watched him go, her heart burning with a mix of shame and something she could not name. She had thought she could crush him, thought her throne made her stronger than any man. But she had been wrong, and she knew it. As the gates closed behind Ethan, the queen stood alone in the center of the arena. The sound of the crowd still echoed, their cheers carrying his name. Helena clenched her sword, her pride wounded, her spirit shaken. For the first time, she began to wonder if true strength was not found in crowns or thrones, but in the calm heart of a man like Ethan Carter. The arena fell silent as the queen raised her sword again. Her face was set, her pride wounded but not broken. She would not let Ethan Carter leave without proving himself in another challenge. The people held their breath, watching her struggle to regain her strength. Helena's arms shook slightly, her armor heavy, but her eyes burned with determination. Ethan stepped forward calmly. He knew the queen's pride would make her reckless, if he allowed her to strike first. He did not speak, he only moved with careful steps, keeping his blade ready. The ground beneath them was dusty, the stone floor cold, but neither man faltered.
Ow!
The air was tense, filled with the sound of shallow breathing and the faint clink of armor. The queen charged, her sword flashing in the sunlight. She swung with full force, aiming to end the fight quickly. Ethan raised his blade just in time, parrying each strike. He guided her power away, not with force, but with control. Each clash sent sparks flying, and the sound echoed through the arena, bouncing off the stone walls. Helena's anger grew as her attacks failed. She had underestimated Ethan, and now her pride forced her to try harder, to swing faster, to strike without thought. Her movements became uneven, her breath heavy. Ethan remained calm, stepping aside, blocking and watching. He was patient, letting her strength tire her before making his move. The crowd watched in amazement. Some shouted for the queen, others for Ethan. The cheering grew louder for the warrior who fought with skill, honor, and calm strength. Helena noticed this and felt a pang of doubt. The people were starting to see the truth, and it stung her pride more than any strike could. She swung wildly, trying to force a hit. Ethan used the opportunity to counter. With one precise movement, he disarmed her, sending her sword spinning across the arena floor. The crowd gasped, the sound echoing like thunder. Helena stepped back, stunned. She had fought with all her strength, yet she had been beaten without cruelty or malice, only with skill and patience. Ethan did not advance. He only held his blade steady, a simple warning that he could end the fight if he wanted. Helena's heart raced, her chest felt tight. For the first time, she realized her pride had blinded her. She had thought strength was shown by force, by armor, by crown, by the ability to strike first and strike hard. But Ethan had shown her another kind of strength, one that did not rely on anger or pride. She bent down slowly, picked up her sword, and held it with both hands. Her eyes met Ethan's, and she nodded slightly, a silent admission of his skill. The crowd held its breath as the queen lowered her blade. She had lost, and she knew it. Yet she did not feel shame, only a heavy respect for the man who had defeated her without striking with hate. Ethan stepped back and bowed slightly. He did not boast. He did not raise his voice. He simply showed honor and respect for the queen. The people erupted in applause, not just for the victory, but for the way it had been won. Helena watched him, her pride softened, her heart heavy with understanding. She had learned something that no armor, no sword, no throne could teach. True strength comes from discipline, patience, and a calm heart. The queen straightened her back and raised her head. She addressed the crowd, her voice steady and clear. She praised Ethan Carter, telling the people of his skill, his honor, and his courage. The people cheered even louder, not just for Ethan, but for the queen, who could admit her limits. Lena felt a quiet pride, different from the arrogance she had felt before, a pride born from wisdom and respect. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the arena, the queen turned and walked toward the gates. Ethan remained in the center for a moment, letting the people see the calm man who had changed their queen. Then he walked quietly through the gates, leaving behind a kingdom that had witnessed true strength, and a queen who had learned that even the proudest ruler could be humbled by honor and skill. The morning sun rose over the kingdom, casting gold across the stone walls. The arena was empty now, but the story of the duel between Queen Helena and Ethan Carter had spread throughout the land. People spoke of it in the markets, in the streets, and in their homes. They spoke of strength, honor, and the calm power of a man who had challenged a queen and lived to show the way of true courage. Queen Helena sat in her private garden, thinking about the fight. She no longer felt the sting of pride, only a quiet respect for the man who had changed her understanding of strength. Her crown rested gently on her head, no longer a weight of arrogance but a symbol of responsibility. She understood now that ruling with pride alone could not lead a kingdom. She needed wisdom, patience, and respect for the people and for those who served them. Ethan Carter had returned to his simple home on the edge of the kingdom. He did not seek fame, gold, or titles. He lived quietly, training his body and mind, always ready for the challenges life might bring. People came to see him, asking for guidance, lessons, and stories of the arena. Ethan spoke simply, teaching them to be patient, disciplined, and fair. He never boasted, and his calm nature inspired respect in all who met him. The queen summoned him to the palace. She wished to speak, not as a ruler commanding her subjects, but as a person recognizing the worth of another. Ethan entered the hall, his steps quiet and confident. Helena stood, not behind her throne this time, but at the center of the room, looking him directly in the eyes. "Ethan," she said, her voice steady, "you have shown me what strength truly means. It is not in the sword alone or the armor we wear, but in the heart and mind of the warrior. I owe you respect, and I hope you will guide me in learning what it means to lead well." Ethan nodded, bowing slightly. "I do not wish for titles, your majesty. My wish is only to serve the people, to show them that honor and calm strength are more powerful than anger and pride. If I can help you lead with wisdom, then the kingdom will be stronger." The queen smiled, a true smile this time. She extended her hand, not as a command, but as a gesture of trust. Ethan shook it firmly, and in that moment, a new understanding was born. The people would see their queen not only as a ruler of power, but as a leader who could listen, learn, and grow. Days passed, and the kingdom thrived. The lessons of the arena spread far beyond the walls. The people learned that strength was not only in fighting, but in patience, honor, and respect. Queen Helena worked alongside Ethan, seeking counsel and guidance, always mindful of the balance between authority and fairness. The people cheered her name not only for her crown, but for the wisdom she now carried. Ethan continued to walk through the markets, training grounds, and villages. His presence was calm and reassuring, a reminder that true strength came from discipline and honor. Young men and women followed his example, learning to fight not with anger but with patience, not with pride but with respect. He became a symbol of courage and fairness, remembered for the day he changed a queen, and inspired a kingdom. One evening, the Queen and Ethan stood at the top of the palace balcony, looking out over the city. The sun set in orange and pink, casting a warm glow over the streets and towers. Helena spoke quietly. "I have learned much, Ethan. Not from my advisors, not from my throne, but from you. You have shown me the path of a true warrior and a true leader." Ethan nodded, his calm eyes reflecting the sunset. "Strength comes from the heart, and honor comes from discipline. The people see it, and they will follow it. A kingdom is strong not only because of a crown, but because of the wisdom that guides it." The Queen smiled again, feeling the weight of her crown lighter than ever. She had been humbled, taught, and inspired. Ethan had not only won in the arena, but had changed the way she ruled. Together they had shown that even the proudest ruler could learn, and that true strength always came from the heart. The kingdom flourished, and the story of the warrior and the queen was told for generations. People remembered the calm strength of Ethan Carter and the wisdom of Queen Helena. They remembered the lesson that pride alone could not win battles. But patience, honor, and discipline could conquer any challenge. The kingdom lived in peace, guided by the strength of the heart and the wisdom of the ruler who had learned to respect the true power of a man.